Okay, so he chose Andrew, right? That's where we left off for his project. He's working on a project with his friend Andrew. If Andrew didn't brag so much, he wouldn't be such a bad kid. He has a good imagination. If Dad could get the cops to test Andrew with a polygraph, maybe that would cut down on his bragging. Zack, you're lucky to be getting me as a partner, said Andrew. You may not know this, but I come from a long line of inventors. Ancestors of mine invented the telescope, the steam engine, and the whoopee cushion. You have to ask your mom what a whoopee cushion is. So, is that so? I asked. Why don't we continue this discussion when you're hooked up to the polygraph? Little did I know that hooking Andrew up to the polygraph might blow our entire science fair project. Chapter 2. The detectives at the precinct on 51st Street said it would be okay for us to see how a polygraph worked. So Dad took me and Andrew there on Thursday after school. I didn't know if you had ever been to a police station, but it's really cool. When you walk in, there's a long counter. Behind it is a desk sergeant. He's the first person you talk to. Excuse me, officer, said Dad. We have an appointment with Detective Stufflebean. Is he in? Upstairs, said the desk sergeant. He pointed to the stairway. Andrew, Dad, and I walked upstairs. Upstairs is where the detectives have their office. A bunch of them sit at their desks and work on cases. Detectives investigate crimes that happen in the neighborhood. They type up reports. They talk on the phone. They go out to crime scenes. They interview people who might know something about the case. They all wear guns, either in their belts or in shoulder holsters under their arm. Hi, Detective Shufflebean, Dad said to the gruff-looking detective who was frowning at the report on his desk. Shufflebean looked just like all the plainclothes policemen in those old gangster movies they show on TV. His suit was kind of baggy and his tie was loose. He was wearing a hat with a brim that had slipped to the back of his head. That must be him. Oh, look at that. He needs to quit smoking. Okay. I'm having a hard time turning pages for some reason. Okay. He had a lit cigarette hung out of the corner of his mouth. I really hated when people smoke around me. It makes me cough. It makes my eyes burn. And I think it's really rude. I was thinking of telling Dr. Stufflebean that, but I thought maybe I'd wait until I knew him better. Who are these individuals? Said Detective Stufflebean, frowning. This is my son Zack and his friend Andrew Clancy, said Dad. We all shook hands. Detective Shufflebean was staring hard at Andrew. Andrew was staring hard at the detective's gun. My cousin was a detective in Long Island, said Andrew. He shot 12 perps. I sincerely doubt that, said Detective Stufflebean, frowning and smoking. He got up. All right, gentlemen, he said. It's time for the polygraph. Dad, Andrew, and I followed Detective Stufflebean into the office next door. The polygraph was on the table. Gentlemen, this is the polygraph, said Detective Stufflebean. It is known as a lie detector. I knew that, said Andrew. I've got one at home, except mine is a lot newer. Detective Stufflebean's eyes got narrow. He stared at Andrew a few seconds, smoking and without saying anything. In a moment, kid, he said, I'm going to hook you up to this polygraph. I'll measure your breathing, your blood pressure, and how much you sweat. See that roll of paper over there? Yes, said Andrew. When I turn the machine on the machine, said the detective, that roll of paper will start moving. These little arms, like pins attached to the ends of them, will start zigzagging on the roll of paper. If you lie, the pen will zigzag up like a mountain. Then I'll know you're lying. So will every man in this room. So will every man in this police station. You better tell the truth, kid. Hey, Stufflebean, another detective called. The captain wants you in his office. I'll be right back, said Detective Stufflebean. Do not, under any circumstances, touch the polygraph while I'm gone. No problem, said Andrew. But the minute the detective left, Andrew started messing with the knobs on the polygraph. Andrew, what are you doing? Said Dad. He grabbed Andrew and pulled him away from the polygraph. Didn't you hear what the detective told you? Yeah, I heard, said Andrew. But Andrew didn't stop. Boy, asked Andrew, that detective is pretty grumpy, isn't he? He's going to be even grumpier if you break the polygraph, Andrew, said Dad. He pulled Andrew away again. And I'm the one he's going to blame, said Dad. Andrew stopped fooling with the polygraph just as Detective Stufflebean walked back in. The detective was frowning. He was still smoking. There was one lit cigarette in his mouth and another in his hand. He was also coughing. I could have told him why he was coughing, but I decided not to. All right, gentlemen, said the detective. Now we can begin. He hooked Andrew up to the machine. Wires went from Andrew's arms, chest, and fingers to the polygraph. The detective turned a switch and a roll of paper started moving. Suddenly there was a soft popping sound and a shower of sparks. Did anybody touch the machine while I was gone? Asked the detective. Answer, yes or no. Uh-oh. Now I'll really know if he lied. No way, said Andrew. Dad rolled his eyes. The pins on the roll of paper went crazy, zigzagging all over the place. Kid, said the detective to Andrew, did you touch the polygraph while I was gone? Answer yes or no. No, said Andrew. The pins went crazy again. Okay, kid, asked Detective Shufflebean. Let's start over. To show you what happened, what happened when you're telling the truth. I'm going to ask you a question you already know the answer to. First, is your name Andrew Clancy? Answer yes or no. Yes, said Andrew. The pins hardly zigzagged at all. Are you in the 5th grade, Mr. Clancy? Answer yes or no. Yes, said Andrew. The pen hardly zigzagged. See how the pen hardly moved when I asked your name and grade, said the detective. That's what happens when you tell the truth. Next question. Do you have a detective who's a cousin in Long Island, Mr. Clancy? Answer yes or no. Yes, said Andrew. The pen still didn't zig. Next question. Did your cousin shoot 12 perpetrators? Said the detective. Answer yes or no. Yes, said Andrew. The pen went crazy. There were sparks from the machine, and there was a sound of cloth ripping. That sound didn't come from the machine. Kid, you just split your pants, said the Detective Shufflebean. Dad and I looked at Andrew's pants. They were split, just like the detective said. Weirdly, Andrew's butt looked bigger. Oh, here it goes. If you tell a lie, your butt grows. How could it have suddenly split his pants? I'm going to ask you, Mr. Clancy, said Detective Shufflebean. Did you touch the polygraph while I was gone? Answer yes or no. No, said Andrew. Again the pins went crazy. Again I heard cloth ripping. Wow, Andrew's butt had gotten bigger. You could see his underpants. He had clowns and balloons. They had clowns and balloons on his underpants. Andrew, I said, I think your butt is growing every time you lie. You're crazy, said Andrew. No, I'm not, I said. Remember Pinocchio? His nose got longer every time he told a lie. You're just like Pinocchio, only with different body parts. Kid, said Detective Shufflebean, I got a good mind to take you into the interrogation room and make you tell me the truth. Excuse me, Detective Shufflebean, said Dad. Aren't you being a little tough on this boy? He's only 10 years old. Too tough, said Detective Stufflebean. Let me tell you something, mister. Lying to a cop is serious business, see? Lying to a cop goes against everything this country stands for. Lying to a cop is like lying to George Washington or Babe Ruth or the Grand Canyon. I've sent people up the river to Sing Sing prison for lying to a cop. Okay, that's enough, said Dad. We're going home. Whatever you say, said the detective. He pulled the polygraph wires off of Andrew. Just out of curiosity, kid, said Detective Stufflebean. What kind of cases did your detective cousin work on? Homicide, said Andrew. Homicide, eh? Said Detective Stufflebean. No kidding. Yeah, said Andrew. Sometimes when he's stuck on a case, he calls to ask my advice. I often give him leads that end up cracking the case. In fact, I've solved so many homicide cases for him, the Long Island police made me the honorary detective. They gave me a real detective badge. Rip! I heard another ripping sound. Although Andrew wasn't hooked up to the polygraph now, his butt was starting to pop out of his underpants. It was the grossest thing I'd ever seen. Dad put his raincoat over Andrew, and we hurried out of the room and started down the stairs. That kid has major problems with the truth, said Detective Stufflebean, frowning, smoking, and coughing. For me and Andrew, our major problems had only begun. The end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 tomorrow.